And we are recording with Mr. David Gosselin on Thursday, June 15th, 2023 at 5:42 p.m. Eastern Time. We're talking about the philosopher poet, the warrior king, or the warrior poet, philosopher king, Tim J. Dillon. If you don't know who he is, you should probably kill yourself. But you did do your first recording of one of your articles, and the link to that article is in the description. I updated it, and you can listen to the recording. I don't remember what it was, 35 minutes or 42 minutes. I don't remember what it is. Very good. And as I told you via text, and as I'll tell you now, you have a very good recording voice. As someone that does this all day long, you start to pick up on other people's voices in a very odd serial killer-esque fashion, but you do
Right.
start to pick up. So somebody might send me like a video or something of like what them playing with their dog, and I'll be like, "You have a great voice," and they'll be like, "Thanks." And I'm like, I swear I'm not in the bushes outside of your house. Um, but with that totally normal introduction, David, could you please tell everybody, tell the good people who you are as I rudely post the link on the live link online?
Yeah, nice to be back, Mr. Carrigan. I mean, David Gosselin here. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Chained Muse. I also publish a literary journal, The New Liar, which actually I might drop some quotes from this in our discussion about the big city and Eden, which is going to be one of our themes, and we'll get to more about that soon. But yeah, so all things literature, timelessness, that's what interests me. And our culture is obviously in a crisis, but the question is, it's easy to talk about problems, right? But oftentimes a lot of smart seeming people have these very sophisticated analyses of problems. You have the culture wars, but then does that really get us to the real thing? How long can you stare into the abyss until it stares back at you?
Yeah.
And does that really actually allow you to get out of it?
Yeah. And a great line from your book, and I liked, was kind of stuck with me, is the higher you climb, the greater the potential fall.
Right.
And that one's always stuck with me because like if you're kind of in a shit area of life and then kind of get out of it, which I spent 5 years in this weird yo-yo limbo of trying to lose weight and then gaining it, trying to get sober and then fucking it up, trying to
Mm,
get a job, getting one and then losing it for like half a
mm.
decade. And it really did feel like some weird, as I look back on it, it was some weird foggy limbo of a life. Like I don't remember which month was from which year. It all blended together of just into just misery. But as I found kind of quote unquote getting out of it for really the last 3, almost 4 years, which directly correlates to this podcast, losing weight, kind of, controlling like, spending and saving money, reading, and you mess up here and there. But it does get a little anxiety inducing because sometimes I get a little anxious. I'm like, oh, the show's growing. I'm in a cool apartment. I've lost a ton of weight. I've saved a ton of money.
Mm.
Wow, if I mess up, I could really mess up. Like I got some savings I could use to really fuck shit up. And want to know if you could maybe elaborate on that line or any
Right. Well,
line you wanna.
and just clarify, because yeah, you said books, so you're talking about the recent, the
Did I say
dialogue.
book? Sorry, yeah, I meant line.
Yeah.
Yeah, article. Yeah,
So yeah,
sorry.
the dialogue between Adam and Eve. So I figured I'd try my hand at writing dialogues, which I think is a crucial part of any classical education, classical culture. Like there's a lot of in academia, there's like treatises, right? Everybody's giving a speech and these long analyses of problems, but that's not really the Socratic method. By the way, I just have a bit of a dry cold here, so if I clear my throat, don't mind me.
David is incubating COVID-23. He's doing it intentionally.
Yeah,
He just got back from Wuhan and he told me it's quote
right.
unquote because I hate people.
But I did find the cure, which is hot sauce. Actually, Frank's Red Hot Sauce. This is actually.
Isn't that convenient that he brings a problem and also sells us the cure?
I'm a believer. But yeah. So as far as the Adam and Eve dialogue, yeah, it's one thing to be able to just talk about. People just want to be told. We were just talking about this, talking about uh, getting a good
Getting
mic, and
microphones.
people want to be told what to do. people want to be told what to believe. And I made the joke that I just wanted to be told what to do when it came
Yeah.
to getting a good mic.
Yeah.
I don't want to have to think about that.
I don't want to have to understand it. I don't care what a XLR or a DLR. I don't give a shit.
Yeah, and you know what? That's normal at a certain point. I mean, we can all only handle so much or hold so many things in our head at one time, right? And so we're talking about, I mean, the fall of Adam and Eve, the fall of man, right? The which I think today in the Tim Dillon terms would be life in the big city. Life in the big city is just really another way of saying a fallen world. We live
Yeah.
in a fallen world. We live in a world of duality. Mankind has tasted the fruit of duality. And now we have choices to make, right? It's not just all, blackberries on bushes and rainbows and like perfect streams. But so we have choices to make. And so yeah, the higher one goes, I mean, this idea of just having reached this pure enlightenment where then we're all set. I'm all set, I don't have to think anymore. I mean, isn't that really that leads to corruption? Or to put it in Tim Dillon terms, actually, and this is a good one. He says money has an anesthetizing effect,
Yes.
right? So you see a lot of rich when people are hustling and they're in the world of duality. There's all these elements coming at them. They have to be online to a certain point. But once you've kind of transcended
Get to that.
that survival thing, that can go many different ways, right?
Yeah.
Like you could say, sure, yeah, I'm gonna be a charitable person, I'm gonna do all this stuff. But you actually see that when people kind of make it, if we're talking about artists, right? Our favorite artists or favorite whatever, do we really think about, yeah, like the super polished like late stuff, or like when they're already big, or do we think about like the raw kind
Yeah.
of the old school stuff,
Yeah.
right? So why is that? Like what's with that, and why is it that, I mean, for a lot of bands, right? Like bands, musicians, it's oftentimes it's their early stuff, it's when they were on their way
Hungry.
up that we're like, that's what we look to as the ideal, not when they're all just established and posh and like they don't
It'll
have to worry anymore.
it'll never be as cool. Yeah. And you always hear the terms, they either fell off, right? They made it slash sell out, which is what Tim Dillon says, that Valium-esque anesthetization. It's a hard word to say. Do they crash and burn? Just OD, right? And then there's the rare example of staying hungry, right?
Right.
Comes to mind is for athletes, you might think of a LeBron James or a Tom Brady. They didn't quit after their first championship.
Right.
And for music, I think a lot of people throw out Eminem. I don't know enough about Eminem, but in terms of still just getting better, and I'm sure that there's someone who's watching going, no, we didn't. I don't care.
Mm.
But yeah, no, it's that idea of, do you go for it? Do you stay an animal? Um, you might say Rogan, he keeps putting out episodes, you know?
Right. And so there's a humility there, right? To not ever thinking like we're I mean, well, that there's this, yeah, there's a basic humility that as much as we might know, there's just so much more to know. But at the same time, it's like in scripture, it says, what do you have that you haven't received? So that's another one where we could say, oh, yeah, I've done all this stuff and da da da. But if we're using our God given talents, right, our natural talents, good job. You're using your talents that you were given. Pat on the back. Good job, Timmy. Kind of, but it's more like, well, if you're not using the gifts that you have, that's tragic. People should be developing what they have. And if they do, even then, how much pride can you have if you're just kind of developing the natural gifts that you already have? And I think that's where the real wonder comes in, right? That people do have their natural gifts, that we do all have a deeper self. And it's our responsibility to discover that, because nobody else can really tell us, right? We're all in the image of God, let's say. We all have this divine spark, but nobody can really tell us how that spark can be developed uniquely within ourselves. that's on us. And so I think that's something that we're always going to have to ponder. It's not something we figure out and then just lay back. Because really, and even if let's say we do, then you realize, well, hey, there's a lot of people that are still, a lot of folks are struggling. So if you get out of the cave, I mean, well, congrats, asshole. Now you have to go and help all the other people. So you're
Yeah.
back to square one.
Yeah.
I mean, I actually think that's a nice way to think about it. So it's never over, like
No.
we're not going to get bored here.
Yeah. What a surprise. All things spiritual are cyclical. Yeah. It's, yeah. Do you go back and help them out? Do you help out anyone
Yeah.
else in a tough time? Do you go back and, or,
Or yeah, I was just
I was gonna,
or now that's a big part.
or, I was gonna say, Tim Dillon, but those three little letters, but you're the whole fucking should have kept your mouth shut. The episode where that lady shoveling snow and gets shot in the head. Did
She
you?
what?
It's like early 2021. There's like a doorbell video of this lady yelling at her neighbor. She's shoveling snow and she's yelling at her neighbor. And she's like, "You pussy, you
Oh,
fucking
right.
pussy. Like, what are you going to do? Shoot me? Like, fuck off. Get at." Because I don't, whatever. Apparently, this has been
Right.
some
Something
argument
really
going on.
bad happened.
Guy comes out with an AR, shoots her. She falls over. He walks up right to her. It's really low resolution, so you can't really see it. Puts the gun to her head and says, "You should have kept your mouth shut." Kills her.
Oh, yeah.
Then kills himself. It's hard to watch,
Christ, yeah.
and it's insane. I've watched it. I can't watch it. Tim Dillon with back with Ben is watching it.
Mm.
He's going, "This is horrible. This is bad." But he goes, "Those three little words.
Right. That's when there's the lesson.
She should have kept her mouth shut." But so no. But so what that makes me think of is, or are you depriving someone of the ability to become great? If you rose from the shit, from the fires, if it pushed you into a champion, are you, and this might be some sort of deranged logic, but are you robbing them of that by pulling them out of the fire?
Well, I guess we have to define, yeah, what that, because can we really pull somebody else out of the fire? I mean, I think maybe we think we can, and maybe that'll do damage. So you're right. Like if people aren't, people have to make a decision, right? They have to make a choice, and nobody can make that choice or decision for them. But like we're saying, if once you get out of the cave, right? Because we're saying like once you've reached a certain point where, let's say you have a self mastery and XYZ, congrats, you figured enough out so that maybe you could help others. But then that's the thing. If you get out of the cave, the other take, or once you're out, then you become one of the managers, right? Which is what we look at today. If you're looking at people, and I wouldn't say we could argue whether they fully made it out if they choose to like go on the dark side, kind of, become one of the managers. But the whole point is the shadows on the wall, on the cave wall, right? And somebody's manipulating those images. Those are the images inside the heads of human beings. And so once the person escapes the cave and realizes that, hey, those images aren't the real thing, but they're really shadows being cast by something else. And if we really want to figure things out, we have to start conceptualizing what is that thing causing the shadows.
Mm.
Now, if you get an intimation of that, but there's something missing in your insight or in yourself, and you say, well, I'm going to help manipulate the shadows now, right? You're going to be recruited into the upper managerial class, which is how much of the Western empire system works, right? The brain trust, the Rhodes Scholars, right? If you look at Aldous Huxley and these types, Thomas Huxley, his grandfather or great grandfather, I mean, they weren't, or H.G. Wells, they're like part of the real kind of upper crust Anglo-American intelligentsia, right? Kind of crafting the narratives and the vision. They're recruited, like they didn't have to do the thing. they're
Wasn't
doing. They're
Tucker
not bred.
Carlson's dad in the CIA?
Yeah, there's a whole thing.
That's a whole. Yeah,
And,
sorry, keep going.
but I mean, I know where you're going with that, but yeah, so there is that choice, right? So we're talking about making it, climbing higher, and
Hmm.
you're going to have choices to make at every step of the way. And the problem is that the higher you go, the more anesthetized we may become. And then it's, you know, it's a it's a different thing depending on where you are on the ladder. So what happens when you get a taste of the fruit, right? But you're kind of higher up in the hierarchy. We could go all sorts of places with that. But yeah, I think
Yeah,
hence the fall becomes the higher one climbs. I don't know that the fall can be steeper in the sense that, well, you can do more evil, right?
yeah, you can do greater damage.
you can become more indifferent and less moral. And that's what happens to a lot of people because I would venture to say that that's why it's important to like the full development through early education, right? Through the basic educational sort of process is key. Because what happens if we don't get that and then we explode, right? You see all these Hollywood stars or
Yeah, you're
whatnot,
like
like
16. You're doing a concert for 1 million people.
yeah,
That's not proper development.
not
That's no
good.
better than fetal alcohol syndrome in terms of
Yeah,
like improper development.
yeah. And so I if we can take that, but then we can look at on a whole scale like America, right? That there was this sudden surge of wealth. Tim Dillon always he says like my problem isn't even with the politicians so much, or like even the corrupt, the bad guys and the rich guys. Uh, what's good without evil? He
Yeah, what's
says
good
in the
without evil?
opener, and thank God for them.
Yeah, thank God for them.
Because my
Yeah,
problem's with the people, right? The people who are clapping and watching Jimmy Fallon playing with fucking Muppets or like all these lame ass
puppet shows and waffle
Transformer,
Sundays.
Marvel superheroes.
Don't forget the end of that rant, though. Was it puppet shows and chocolate Sundays? Don't forget the very end of that episode. It's talking about how dumb these people are, and then he goes, "Maybe they're not dumb. Maybe they just know that fighting's useless and the entire system's been captured. So they're doing the only thing that makes sense is eating chocolate sundaes and watching Muppet shows. And maybe we're the idiots for trying to wake them up.
right,
So
right. That's
maybe you're in the cave and you're watching the shadows, and part of you goes,
let's just
I have a hint it's horse shit, but you know what? The fire's warm, and I have food. Just tell me which microphone to buy."
let's just enjoy the show. Okay,
There's
okay.
something to be said for that, man. There's something to be said for saying,
I,
I know this drug is bad, but you know what? I'm warm and fuzzy.
and you know what? I think the truth is there's a bit of all those things, right? Some people know, some people have an intimation, and I guess the question is like some people miss the mark. We could say for different reasons, right? Some people know. Actually, this gets to one of the themes that they're not willing to face the full picture of the darkness, right? They're not willing to fully confront the darkness. But I would venture to say that when we're talking about any of these things, Tim Dillon, first 100 episodes is about like pedophile cults and like
Literal
Thompson
satanic pedophile cults.
and like beta monarch,
Yeah.
alpha delta programming of kids through trauma to create
Yeah.
multiple personalities and programmed assassins. Now that's a lot, right? And as we say, some people's when they heard about some people came online with like the Epstein
Yeah.
pedophile ring, right? So you find out
And it melted their
that your
brains.
political class is largely controlled through pedophilia and blackmail, and your brain melts a bit, because like
Yeah.
that's a rough way to come online.
Yeah.
Uh,
He goes, anybody in our age came up with the internet and you kind of had questions about 9/11 and you kind of had questions about the Gulf of Tonkin and you started reading about the Fed. We all did that. I know, at least I did. Most people I know, you were doing that by age like 16 and 18. And it kind of yeah, you're not that surprised. Versus we had our parents who were watching Sean Hannity up until, you know, 2018. And then
Yeah,
all
or
of a
CNN.
sudden, yeah,
I was
or
around
whatever.
CNN.
Sure,
Yeah, I was
whatever.
little.
Anderson Cooper, Tucker Carlson, both families from the CIA, whatever. But like,
Yeah,
and then they come online with like, there's an occult temple on like a Caribbean island where they're fucking kids,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and he just
Well,
gets whacked in a high security. That's a hard way to come online, and you immediately go, well, it must all be fucked, and then you fall into the big warm net of QAnon,
yeah.
and Donald J. Trump's gonna save you, right?
And but and so that's why though I think as much as we can go into that craziness, right? I think, and we could say that maybe people, one would argue people aren't willing to look at the darkness or they can't fathom it. But really, I think what's lacking in most cases, we describe these different characters, the one who knows it's a puppet show, but they're like, you know what, I'm going to enjoy the show. I'm going to have my Sunday and like Bucky's or whatever.
They
Um,
eat Bucky's.
what they really lack, though, I would argue, is not knowledge of the bad so much as knowledge of the good, the deeper good
Mm.
within themselves, right? The deeper potential within themselves, which in in some of the recent work I've done, what was pointed out, like in the research that I was reading, one of these documents, the Stanford Research Institute Changing Images of Man report, which is really one of the kind of like blueprints for repatterning Western civilization around our current, environmentalist earth goddess death cult that's about just like reducing humanity's numbers as much as possible. They make the point that one of the most difficult things to change, the greatest obstacle that people encounter in a therapeutic setting when they're coming up against something that they want to change in their life, is their self image. The basic self image, the image that one has of oneself, is one of the most difficult things to change. You could
Mm.
get all the right habits, like let's, working out, doing things, but that deeper sense of self and self image, that is so anchored that's the thing people will often push back against things that they know are good for them if they realize that it threatens their basic self image. And so you see
Oh,
that when we're so this is true in therapy, but this is also true in when we talk about these kinds of issues where what's really being challenged is not that, hey, there's a lot of bad guys, and well, there's actually good guys as well, but you don't really know much about either. But it's more that this would change one's self image. If one were to go down that rabbit hole, you will change,
yeah.
right? And so what's needed to want that change though? What's needed to desire the real thing versus just nice pleasing imitations, right? Pleasing distractions, Sundays and
Uh,
Bucky's and puppet shows and Jimmy Fallon.
That's
Like what would get us to break away from that?
on one hand, rock bottom will do it.
Okay.
Whenever if you've ever been to rock bottom, I mean, really, just you're completely fucked and you got to call your parents. That'll do it. Um, for me, I mean, so what you said about like, it's not that it's that you don't know about the good. One of the things is if you're ever kind of in a spiral of gaining weight or drinking or smoking or taking pills, it's you should stop, but all you see is the hardness. You should get up. We both go to the gym every day. If you ever go for long periods without going to the gym, it just starts to seem like a bad. You get
It's
out of
not.
bed, but after a while, you start to not want to go to the gym, and you go, well, why would I want to go to the gym? This bed's so warm, and then you
Yeah.
finally get yourself going. You go to the gym, and you come back, and you go, that's why I do it every day. I feel
Yeah.
fucking great, but that's never advertised. All you see is I got to get out of this warm bed. So it's like the badness is right there on display. You got to get out of the warm bed, but the trophy you never get to see until you have it. So I mean, there's a massive bottleneck of like who actually goes. I don't know. Is it just random chaos? Is it people who hit rock bottom and have a doctor tell them you got to lose weight? Is it that
Yeah.
your girlfriend stops fucking you and you're like, I got to do something?
Right.
Is it a bad acid trip? I don't have an answer, man. I mean,
Well, I think, you know what? Well, I think what I at least have come to appreciate, number one, usually the giving advice thing doesn't work. It
no.
works in, so like doctors saying you need to lose weight, that doesn't really work that much. It can sometimes. And when it works really, when in the rare instances where people do take advice, like I know myself, and sometimes I can't blame myself for not having taken good advice sometimes because I didn't necessarily trust the person, and maybe
Yeah, that
rightly
too.
so. Like if you've heard people tell you a lot of bullshit for a long time, and then somebody actually comes with like a nut, like actual solid advice, and maybe they're not taking it themselves though. So it's like, well, why should I? Um, it's normal to be like you don't feel safe, you don't trust, and so you're just trying to. But so and when in the events that we do though, when people do trust or respect somebody, right? So when a doctor says you need to lose weight versus maybe their wife, they looked in the mirror, they know they need to lose weight, their kids told them, like everybody told them, but the doctor says it, well, it's because he's got an authority, right?
Hmm.
He's an authority figure. So now you're getting it, from the horse's mouth, so
Yeah.
to speak. Whereas if you got from everybody else, it didn't really matter. So, but still, that's kind of rare, right? Drug addicts are probably told all the time. Well, they are, you got to stop drugs by experts. And so, what really gets people out? I mean, that's why I've appreciated all this work I did on hypnosis research that to understand the bad guys, but it goes both ways. That you have pattern interrupts, which is we could go both ways. You've talked about this too. You imagine the worst case scenario. Where does one go from here if we're already like, you know, addicted, this, that, da da da. Like, what's next? Like heroin in the trap
Yeah.
house.
Yeah. No,
Like
I just walk it out to the 10th degree.
that's where people are like, and that's often what changes. And you realize, and I know I've known some people where it's clear that they haven't done that exercise. They're not playing things out in their heads to the logical conclusions because they know that they could change. They may not be the same person that they are, and that's what they're resistant against, right? It's their self-image, and often it's not a good self-image, right? It's people saying, "Yeah, I am a piece of shit." So, like, why are you trying to help me if I'm a piece of shit? And like, yeah, I am lazy, and so they'll deflect.
Yeah.
And so you'll see this in therapy, or people will be like, yeah, I'm not good at managing my time for somebody who's a procrastinator. Or, yeah, I was never good in school for somebody who's, not studying, kind of thing. So these are deep beliefs about oneself. And the Changing Images of Man document has a pretty good understanding of that. But they're doing it because they want to change the self image of Western man from that sort of classical, we'll just say Judeo-Christian, man is in the image of God. And, that means that every individual has a creative spark, is in the image of a creator. And therefore, if man is in the image of God, then he should be capable of doing godly things.
Mm.
Now, that doesn't mean he is God. And that's where you get these theological debates. But the idea is that human beings are not animals. It's a qualitative distinction where we make choices and we're aware, right? We have shame. And that's why in the Garden of Eden dialogue that I wrote, I call it a wonderful shame, that God has gifted man with a wonderful shame, which is that we know if we're doing something that's shitty or that's not right. And it doesn't mean like we're always going to hit the mark. We live in a fallen world. We live in the big city. Um, but we're aware. And the real issue is when the evil people, they refuse to feel that guilt, that shame. They don't have it. That's another interesting book where he talks about this, The People of the Lie. This guy, Scott Peck, which was recommended by a good friend of mine. But he makes the point that the people of the lie, the people who tend towards pure evil, they don't have that guilt. They refuse to feel it. So, I mean, these are these are gifts that we have. We can be aware, we can be conscious, but then, we're going back to taking advice or people changing. It's not from being pushed up against, right, and having your thoughts physically change, but it's that your self-image. You can imagine, you're capable of imagining something other than what you are, right? If you can't do that, then like, what are the chances you're going to change? So there's that whole mind thing. And I think once we start playing around with that, we can go and we end up in all sorts of new places that we didn't expect.
There's also a comfort in being a fuck up because but you know what you are, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no uncertainty. I know I'm a fuck up. I know I'm gaining weight. I know I need these drugs. I know I'm unreliable, but I know that I'm these things, and there's no uncertainty. There's certainty in that. There's there's a lot of uncertainty in when your life's going well. You get positive anxiety. It's a positive stressor. It's like when there's so many good things going on in your life, but you do get a little
Yeah,
stressed. You go, I'm dating a new girl. I just got a raise at my
something
job. I'm fucking at the gym. You're
something
like,
bad's gonna happen.
it is. You're like,
You're gonna get
how do
struck
I
down.
fuck it up? I'm gonna fuck it up. And that's very scary. But
Yeah.
it's not necessarily a rationale based in, well, logic. It's not necessarily true. It's like, no, you're just used to fucking up, and you're comfortable with fucking up. Like, you might be, and it's, you enter these like new paradigms of reality of like, well, what if life didn't have to be a constant fuck up? What if it could be truth, beauty, and goodness? What if it could be loving? What if it could be like higher echelons of consciousness, of getting better and better? And then when you get really good, you could help out others. And it's like you're opening this whole new door to this whole new universe, but that's very anxiety inducing. It's like, or you could keep eating the sundaes and taking Valium and watching the puppet shows, and that you'll never escalate from there. But you know it, and guess what? The puppet shows are going to be on tomorrow, and there's no uncertainty there. Here's the Sunday. Take the Valium. You're never going to escalate. You're always going to be a dumb seal just clapping your hands, but
Right.
you're a seal, and there's certainty in that, man. There's certainty in that. There's doing this podcast is just nothing but uncertainty. I never know when it's going to get its next break. It's terrifying. There's no moment of peace. But when I look back after any single month or 6 months or year, it's a constant progression forward. And I'm happy with that. And it's scary, but life is getting better and better and richer. It's very
Amen.
uncertain, but it's scary, or it's very uncertain and it's scary. But overall, I know I'm climbing the mountain, and that feels good.
Well, I mean, you're saying some interesting things here, because I mean, technically, when we're talking about the change, because they're saying the puppet show and da-da-da, number one, I mean, you said the person, again, we're talking about hypothetical people, and yet, I mean, we can all relate to this, and yet we
Yeah.
all know we've either all been that or known somebody, and a bit of everything, right? But number one, does that person really know who they are? They say, I'm a fuck up, I'm a this, I'm a that, da-da-da. But are you really just that? Is there not something else inside yourself that actually, no, you don't know? Like, you're not just that. You've convinced yourself that you're just that, but you're lying to yourself.
Hmm.
And that's actually one of the things that I realized in that dialogue that I wrote with Adam and Eve, where the snake tells them, they're saying, how do we avoid being fooled? How do we strive for the real thing, goodness, truth, and beauty, and not one without the other? And the snake says, never lie to yourself. Because it's one thing to lie to
It's
others,
one thing to
right?
lie
Or
to others because you still
you
have a
make
grasp on some
excuses
sort
like,
of
hey,
logic.
not what, I'm sick, or whatever. I made a mistake. But if you're lying to yourself, like, don't lie to yourself, because
Yeah.
then, like, how is this going to help anything? Like, you're lying to yourself. Like, what is the point, right?
Yeah.
And we could go so deep into that, but again, by doing that, we're denying ourselves one thing that could allow us to transcend all these other things, however complicated and screwed up our life is, right? If we have that deeper truth, and we have a notion of that deeper spark in ourselves, all is not lost. And so the worst thing that could happen is a person lies to themselves so that they can't even get to that deeper good. And so they do say, yeah, I'm just this and that, but they're wrong. At the end of the day, they're wrong. And so, I mean, the question is, do we love the truth? Not just, respect it or like out of duty, do what we're supposed to do, but do we desire it such that if we're doing something and it's really not the truth, we can kind of be like, hey, this isn't the real thing. There has to be an emotional connection to that.
Mm.
And I think the second thing, so that we're refuting this hypothetical person who's like, I know who I am. It's becoming a big thing now, but I think the second thing is that there is a mystery, right? Like when you're talking about, you're saying there's this positive anxiety, but there's another side. You're trying to get to the other side, and you're always technically going to be on that journey, but you recognize that there's something beyond, right? And it's not, that mystery is actually very important. If people are going to break profile, right, if they're going to change their sense of self, there has to be something calling them from afar, in the distance. Dante, when he was in the depths of the Inferno, I mean, there's still Beatrice, right? There is a voice calling, and she's even sending guides, other poets and stuff to help him. He's not alone. And so, I mean, do people allow themselves to take note of these other voices that are calling them? That there is this deeper mystery that is there, that is ready to be discovered if we're ready. Seeking you will find, as they say.
Mm.
So I think it is important. We have to get excited about that mystery, about getting to the other side. Whether it's in our own lives or it's looking at the predicament of Western civilization. What's the other side? What does it look like?
For you, what is the other side?
Well, I mean, I think the answer is we won't know until we get there.
Fuck. Yeah, what is the mystery? What is the voice calling? And then can you even hear it? Do you have to like get quiet enough to hear the voice calling? Or can you only hear the voice calling once you start trying to better yourself? Is it only then that you start to notice the opportunities lying around?
Yeah, well, I mean, we may not know until we get there, but we don't know where we'll end up, but we do know how to get there. It's by tapping in to that deeper thing. It's already there. So, but we have to listen, as you're saying. We have to pay attention to that deeper voice inside ourselves, and that will allow us to remove illusions, right, about ourselves. Right? That's why, I mean, I think the therapy examples and the life transformation examples, right? Whenever, I'll see a YouTube video, I like to hear these stories, right? Because when people have that experience, and then we can move on to the political stuff, we can move on to the scientific, right? Where we thought the universe was one way, but turns out it's actually another. We thought our life was like this. We thought our story was like this. I had all these memories and everything seemed like da da da. Turns out my story was completely distorted. My narrative was completely off. And now I'm discovering this deeper meta narrative that I had kept for myself, or that had been kept for me. And that kind of transformation, you get excited. There is a mystery. And yeah, I think that if we have that experience of shedding illusions like that, at that there is a rush, right? People, everybody's like, we're in a culture that's addicted to all sorts of substances and thrills and fuels and chemicals, but it's like there's also an excitement and a rush from knowing that you're getting to the real thing, that you're removing illusions, and
Mm.
every time you do remove an illusion or distortion about yourself, your past, our own self-image, that experience then is something that we can apply in all sorts of different things. Like, what about the world? If I had all these
These thoughts.
distortions about myself, what distortions do we have about the world?
Yeah.
And as the snake says, I mean, I think this is in the dialogue. The second snake. It's called the second. It's not the. It's not the same as the first snake. But yeah, each time we remove
We get
an
closer to
illusion of
God.
ourselves, others, and the world, we move closer to God, closer to the real thing, and closer to our own deeper selves.
Hmm.
So I think that's stuff we can all get excited about.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking of the guy holding the Sunday, and
Yeah.
watching. Like, what do we say? Like, how do we get in there?
Yeah. How do you get into that warmness? Yeah, it almost seems like you'd have to offer another Sunday in another puppet show, but it's a different thing. It's realness, it's reality. How do you get to the it's like one of my favorite things about meditating is you'll be like 20 minutes in and you'll start to get these gaps between the thoughts. And it's
Mm,
you become aware of that which you weren't aware of, which is just a constant stream of consciousness. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got the email. I got to go gym. Like today, I went and got a haircut, got groceries, got my tires changed, picked up prescriptions. You're just doing. You're just going out. I got the email. Sending the text. And when you're
yeah,
meditating, it takes like 20 minutes, but you start to actually. It's like if the dryer's running, or right now the air conditioner's running. You never really realize it's running until it turns off, and then you go, "It's quiet now." So when you're
right,
meditating, every once in a while, you just get these little 5-second gaps where the thoughts stop and you kind
right.
of look around and the thoughts come back in. But then another couple minutes go by and the thoughts stop again. But this time it's for like 20 seconds, or maybe it's back to back 10-second blips with 5 seconds of thoughts in between. And then the real goal is when you get into one of those, you grab it and you go, let's stay here. And then when new thoughts come up, you go, And it's very, very difficult. I've been doing this, been meditating every day since 2008, and I still barely fucking know what I'm doing. But if you can start to plant your feet in those little gaps of thought,
Mm,
you just get this insane clarity of where you are. And I mean, like, literally, like where you are. Like, I'm on my bed. I'm 32. Today, it's a day in June.
right,
And you just kind of, like record scratch, here I am. And
right,
those moments, to me, that always feels like closer to God. It's just like the birds chirp. It's not the news. It's not, oh, there's a war in Ukraine. It's just you just hear the birds chirping, a car drives by, you see the clouds are really white and puffy. And to me, that is like those are moments of God. At least outside of psychedelics, like those are moments of God where
right.
you're just sitting there on your bed, but it's just here. Like you notice the paint on the walls, and it's just you're here. And then the thoughts start to kind of come back in, and then you got to like re-enter the matrix. Like, all right, well, I got to go do a podcast now. And you just all the thoughts come flying back in, but like
Back to life in the big city.
it's yeah, life in the it's just back and just walking around with a cup full of ice, just and I don't have wine, but just life in the big thing. You ain't nowhere near a fucking city, but that's what it is. And I would
And
imagine that you gotta at some point you just maybe you put down the Sunday for just a minute.
I mean, and well, and as you say that, it makes me think of a few things because I mean, I remember watching a few talks on the question of meditation as well. And I mean, I think you made the point nicely when you said you don't notice like the air conditioner until it goes off. Same thing with your thoughts, right? In that stream of consciousness. And it's
Yeah,
not until you start actually practicing meditation and like just focusing on your breathing without having all these stupid, dumb thoughts
just dumb
constantly.
fucking ice
Yeah.
cream
And the
Sunday
more you notice
thoughts.
they're dumb, right? Like these are all just
You
worthless.
start to
They're,
realize they're like Kim Kardashian thoughts. You're like, these are
yeah,
really fucking
I'm stupid,
retarded.
right?
This
Yeah.
is worth. What am I doing?
Yeah. And so that, I mean, I like the idea then that, well, that means we're starting to pay attention, right? Whereas before we were just on automatic mode, right? We're basically it's just one trance after another, right? You got to go to work, you get up, you take a shower, you got to make food, you got to go out, XYZ. But then it's like, when do we ever take a moment? The flip side of all that, right, is because at the end of the day, we do have to go back, right, like into the world of duality.
Yeah.
Like we do gotta go do the podcast. We do gotta go get the groceries.
Yeah.
And technically, I think part of the transcendence is being able to embrace it all, right? Because transcendence is timelessness, right? Like today we have so many isms, so many different schools of thought, which is why, like, when I'm talking about art, when I'm talking about culture or philosophy, I think the idea of timelessness is important. And classical education, why do we read classics, right? The idea of having a classical education is that we study the works that transcend time and place. And throughout mankind's history, there are works that have been composed that do that. They are classics. They transcend time and place. And we want an education that's based on that, such that no matter where you are in history, you're able to tap into that deeper thing. So, I mean, I think that's where, in that true transcendence, we're still going to have to go through the daily things, but we're able to embrace the whole of it, right? And the idea is, I mean, now we're maybe starting to come full circle, is we're trying to get back to the garden, right? Man is we're in a fallen world. There was the early enchantment of childhood, right? Of mankind's childhood. We were innocent, and then we fell into the world, right? We tasted the fruit of duality. And now the challenge is everybody is just trying to get back to that innocent state, right? To become like the Buddha has the famous sermon with the flower, and Jesus, same thing, says they toil not, neither do they spin, right? The lilies, and the flowers don't worry about this stuff. Be like the flowers. The other things will take care of themselves if you can actually just learn to be. And more famous, he also says, truly I tell you that to enter the kingdom of heaven, you must become like children.
Child, yeah.
Yet St. Paul says, when I was a child, I loved childish things. When I was a man, I put away childish things, right? So it seems like how is that possible?
Yeah.
Is it possible to regain our innocence and to discover an Eden? Is it in the past? Is it in the future? Is it inside? Is it outside? We could entertain these things for a while. But yeah, what is that later re-enchantment? I think that's the third stage. You have the early enchantment of childhood. Then we have the adolescent sort of rebellion and adulthood, fallen world, complexity and duality. And then ultimately the goal is to once again become like children, innocent and in awe, right?
Yeah.
Of the world, of, awed by the mystery of our own soul, that everybody has their own unique soul. And no matter how much we try and understand these things, we're only just getting started. And then, so I was thinking, I was reading a bit of the saints, like the literature, and what I noticed is they're very afraid, right? The idea, the beginning of wisdom is the fear of God, right? That's in the Proverbs, and you'll see the saints are very big on that. So I was trying to think about that, and the way I was seeing it is that the more you learn about the true nature deeper nature of your own self and soul, the more you become worried about betraying that deeper innocence and self that is you, right? To do something that would betray what you are, right, deep down. And so that's how I was thinking about that idea of saintliness and innocence. And in a sense, we're only it takes time, right? Like a child is not conscious, so yeah, they're in awe of everything, but As Friedrich Schiller, another poet who writes on this kind of thing, and he has an essay called on the naive and sentimental. He's talking about art, and he says, for example, like a flower. If imagine a perfectly real looking plastic flower. We love the flower. We admire it because it's so natural, right? It's beauty, and it's not lacking anything. It's not desiring, covetous of anything. It's just being. And he makes the point that the flower or the child is a reminder of what we were and what we must once again become. But he makes the point, I mean, for the flower or for the child, technically it's not by merit. The child couldn't be anything other than a child, even if
Yeah.
it wanted to. You can't
Yeah.
say, "Good job,
Good
Billy.
job on
You like
being in awe of the
playing,
world. Yeah.
you like candy, and you play ball." Like, what else is Billy supposed to do? That's
Yeah.
he's a kid. So, but in adulthood, there's a difference where we become conscious of that thing that
We do applaud people who are spiritually, heightened. Like we do give them a pat on the back. We're like that guy knows what's up.
yeah, but then even then, right? I think the people who get that pat on the back are themselves the ones that are going to be like as they say. I mean, the saints, they don't go patting themselves on the back, right? They're more looking at how how they are lacking, like they
Hmm.
are not perfect, which is technically like the key to always
Always
becoming
be
better
getting better. Yeah. Yeah. Is
and to have grace and humility. And when these things are lost, right, it doesn't matter how good we are, right? If we lose those,
you start falling.
we become blinded by pride. I mean, I think this applies to our modern times, right? All this affluence, and it's just a couple of generations, decades, right? And there was a lot of wealth, there was a lot of a quick ascension, a lot of hubris, starting wars based on lies and all sorts of things, and people kind of went along with it for a pretty long time. So, I mean, these lessons don't go away, but all the more, I mean, I think it's humbling, right?
Hmm.
Now, I mean, that's yeah, we don't want to end it on a bleak note.
No, no,
I
no,
mean,
no,
I
no,
think
no. I
that's
was
the
just thinking,
beginning.
yeah,
Yeah, like we got to recognize the problem, right? And that's actually where we can, yeah, if we can recognize that, yeah, we there was a quick ascension. Like, so what's needed to ensure that a rise doesn't lead to like a precipitous fall?
yeah. Well, what is needed?
How do we regain the garden per se?
Yeah,
Is another way to say it. I mean, I think that's where we got to love the real thing, right? It's not just Sundays, and maybe the Sundays and the puppet shows, I mean, are really good. Like, they're the best quality, and we could talk about them for a long time. Like Tim Dillon does about, whatever his Entenmann's cakes and the whatever the Cool Whip
yeah,
and cakes. Um, but yeah, if we don't love the real thing, then there's nothing in this world that can save us.
yeah,
Or where thy treasure is, there is thy heart.
yeah,
So unless it's in our heart, I mean, it's people are gonna, yeah, they can always just be tempted into going to those things, and it's always there. Hence the need for humility and the deadliness of pride, right? I think they say pride is the deadliest sin, because it's just the oligarchs. What do they have? What are
yeah,
these upper crust people that Tim Dillon always talks about? What is the biggest issue that they have? It's not that they're dumb or da da da. It's the pride.
yeah,
It's such an intoxicating. So I don't want to be that, you know. Or as one of the openers for Louis C.K.'s last stand up, she made the point, like, she was one of the openers. She's like, I want to be rich, I don't want to be kid fucking rich. You know, like just before that, I want to,
Just before starting a war.
yeah,
I want to be like just below Dick Cheney getting Halliburton into Iraq. Like I
yeah.
don't
So
want to
what
be
needs to
invited to
happen?
Epstein's Island. Yeah.
What needs to happen if we do get to a point where we would get to these points? Like, what would need to happen before such that we have uh, the shielding, right? The protection, the moral fitness, right? To not fall.
I don't think you can have it. I think we're looking at I think we're looking at an alcoholic saying, I'm just gonna have one drink, but I'm not gonna have five. I think by the time you're in that momentum of getting that high of a level, I don't think there's any stopping it. I think it's like a cartoon, like running and then you're sliding. And he's trying to run backwards and he runs off the cliff and holds up a sign that says "Oh no." I think that's what it is. I think when you're at the level of like kid fucking rich, I think by the time you're there, you're probably on like an upward trajectory, and trying to stop is like you're trying to put your feet down on an oil slick. Like you are probably the connections you've had to make to get to that point.
Yeah, well, that's where
Good
I
luck
mean,
not going over the vent horizon.
yeah, I mean, I think that's where it gets interesting. Again, we're going down that rabbit hole, and so we discover, like, technically, yeah, because the people though who actually desire the real thing aren't necessarily don't feel tempted to do most of the things that these people are doing to get where they go, right? Like they don't. The people desiring the real thing don't feel the need to, make money in the same way or to acquire to be so covetous, right? And to acquire so many material things. They're useful as tools, but it makes sense that people who, again, where thy treasure is, there is thy heart. If you don't, if you're not that envious of all these worldly things, yeah, you're probably not going to be tempted by these things because it's not technically in your programming. So to put a sage like or saintly like figure, at a party with Epstein, technically it probably wouldn't happen like that, right? Like that's not, they're not in the same areas for a reason. But all the more I think why the stories of like, Jesus wasn't organizing he wasn't trying to organize like the emperors and like all the big guys, right? Salt of the earth, right? He says
Yeah.
like you're the salt of the earth, you know, give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, but it's only if there's that shift in people, and if you have that qualitative change that we can all experience in different ways, right? And we all get intimations of it or glimmers of it, or we hear stories of it, and it reminds us of something deeper in ourselves. It makes us aware. Um, Arguably, that's more powerful, right, than all these other things. And the problem is, most of the people are thinking they have to, get to where Epstein was to make a difference. And maybe that's part of the problem. That's one of the illusions. That's one of the imitations that throws people off.
It seems like there's almost like a self-limiting thing that like by the time you quote unquote make it, you can kind of anesthetize yourself with that kind of Valium-esque lifestyle. Like, I don't have to make more. Let's just say you're making fucking 5 million a year, which for wealth is like on the low end of wealth. But let's just say you're making 5 million a year. Like, you don't have to keep grinding. You can just kind of go about your day.
Yeah,
Does that completely dull the blade? Do you just lose all hunger? Are you like, yeah. So now, like someone that could make a change, you with that income, you're now the last person to give a shit. You're like, yeah, I got top tier like healthcare. All my bills are paid. I have pretty good vacations. I don't have to work.
yeah.
Is that some weird self-limiting like
Well,
reaction?
it definitely will screw people. It's definitely a challenge, right? But I mean, this is why I think Plato talks about philosopher kings, or why Confucius would talk about the aristocratic man, right? Aristo means excellence, right? So the aristocrats are not the way we think of aristocrats in the West, which are just like hereditary blue bloods. but it's that those who strive for excellence in all things, in all ways, these are the ones that should be governing, or their advisors, at least, to the kings, right, to the rulers. You need people have who have gone through that process. And in an ideal society, I mean, we could talk about, practically what do we do here and now, but in an ideal society, people are being trained from early on, right, with a classical education. That's the whole point, right? They're getting a classical education, and they're not getting brainwashed by uh with these false images of man, right, whether it's of others or themselves. Like, the truth is the truth. It's not, if people are desirous of the real thing, then the programming is like, okay, it's you're imposing false images. So I mean, technically it needs to start early, and technically I think, yeah, the people who do get the money and they make it, yeah, the thing is, if they didn't develop that deeper sense of self, like I was thinking, I don't think they stop. In most cases, they don't. They always need more. Like,
Yeah.
that's the thing about it. So the reality is, it's not, it doesn't, people aren't like, okay, now I made it. Now I'm
That's a
going to
good
work
point.
on myself. They usually,
The kids born into it, they're the ones that stop.
they're the ones that what?
The kids that are born into it, they're the ones that it seemed like they're kind of in that volume haze. I think you're right. The people that make it keep going. They keep, because that's what's got them that far.
Yeah, but I mean, that's also why. So, like, for example, in the Confucian, like, or in China, like the Song dynasties and whatnot, the elite kids are being reared to be like, you're not just being an oligarch, like you're being, at the right times, this isn't like always, but they're being reared with a genuine classical education. Or like Solon, right? Solon was one of the seven sages of ancient Greece. Like, they're acquiring the wisdom that's needed to actually govern a society, which is the most difficult. But to do that, first you have to be able to govern yourself. And so these things we're supposed to learn when we're young, right? So I mean, I don't think there's a short answer, but we can see if people, we want to instill that desire for the real thing at the earliest age possible, which I think starts with fairy tales, stories, fables. Everybody knows of the tortoise and the hare story, right? If you're too much in a rush, or you're too confident, and you're gonna get beat by the turtle. I mean, that's a visceral thing. So I think beauty, truth, and goodness have to be visceral, and that's the importance of culture, of art, because beauty awakens our senses, right? It catches our attention, but then what does it bring our attention to? Does it bring our attention to this deeper goodness and truth? Or is it there to seduce us into like doing something stupid, or pursuing something that's just a clever imitation, that maybe somebody's controlling the puppet show, that you think you're in the show, you think you're one of the big actors, or you're one of the big stars. So we have to love the real thing, such that, hey, if you're being deceived, okay, you have a nice cushy life, you got the Sundays, you got the good shows. But if it's a lie, there should be a visceral thing where we're gifted with that wonderful shame, where we're like, well, this isn't it though, right? And I think that has to be instilled, and that's why art and culture are so important, and that's why we see that when these things go by the wayside, it's only a matter of time. It takes time, right? Same way that the elements, the wind and the water, take time to shape the surface of the earth. But at the end of the day, all the mountains, everything has been shaped by those elements. So it's going to decide the outcome of stuff.
Yeah. Well, lastly, is it moral for an outside source to awake the person from eating Sundays and watching puppet shows? Or do they have to be I mean, is it moral because we go, well, I've awoken from it and although it can be painful at times, ultimately it's better at a more core level. Is it moral for us to wake up people watching the Sunday or watching the puppet shows eating the Sundays?
Right. Well, I think it's we'd already have to be wise if we're to go about that the right way. There's a right way and a wrong way. And I mean, I love the Tim Dillon sketch where it's the JFK tour guide and it's talking about, Kennedy's not or dead.
He's in a
Not,
military bunker under this
and
plaza.
he's going to be at the, Trump inauguration
Yeah.
with Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
But just all this, he's gone totally schizo, right? He's
Yeah.
totally like free association, pattern association,
Yeah.
lobotomized to like the
Yeah.
max. But it's because, the joke is people, they learned about like the Epstein pedophile rings and how a lot of our political classes are blackmailed
Yeah.
through these things. And so their brain melts,
Yeah.
and I mean, Young, I'm not, from what I need to read more, but the philosopher, psychiatrist Young, right, he made the point, beware of unearned wisdom. Now that makes sense, right? Even if, I mean, depends what you mean by that. But the idea of, people who are same with the personal thing, right? If people have they have a very distorted sense of self, right? Like the therapist isn't just going to be like, well, actually, you're this, and that, and you're actually like doing all those things wrong, and you're actually not really good, and they're not going to do that, right?
Yeah.
Let's assume the person's got a lot of bad. That's okay, right? The
Yeah.
saints, I mean, again, they weren't the saints. Jesus wasn't going to look for people who were perfect, right? He was going to look for people who actually were struggling, because the flip side is they've been to the other side, the dark side. They know how deep the fall can be, right? And there's a certain wisdom that comes from that they're probably in a better position to help people who are struggling than the well-adjusted person who's doing fine, breezing through life, and God bless them. We wish them well, but obviously they haven't gone through certain things. So they'd be like, just don't worry, man. Like if you ever talk to somebody, if you've had anxiety or something, I remember when I had all sorts of anxiety or da-da-da, and like people who are kind of well adjusted, I mean, their advice is
It's always
like,
shit.
and
Just
essentially like, well,
relax.
they're like
Oh,
the
thanks.
flower. You could say they're like the flower in the sense that they're just being, but
Yeah.
it's like they haven't been through the same things, so they have no reference points.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh well, you have this bad thought. Well, just don't think about it then.
Dude,
It's like, oh wow, I
I was
never
having
thought
one
about
of the worst panic attacks of my life one time at my buddy's house back in like 2018. And I was like sleeping on his couch downstairs or like trying to. And I was just, I mean, like, it was moving from anxiety to panic. Like,
it. Yeah.
I need to fucking go to a doc. Like, yeah, just through the roof. And I texted him, I was like, dude, and he was like, just go sit on the porch. And I wanted to walk upstairs and kill him.
Yeah.
And I love him. He's one of my best friends to this
Yeah.
day. But I still think about that. He's like, just go get on the porch. And I was like, I'm hypervent. I need fucking like
I
medical
can't
attention
breathe.
now.
Yeah.
And he was like, just go look at the stars, man. And I was like, I'm gonna fucking kill you with my bare hands.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, that's technically. So there's a wisdom, right, that certain people will have, but all the more so. Your question, is it immoral to intervene on the person who, is it immoral to tell them that, yeah, the pedophile rings really do have your senator blackmailed, and that's why they're, going to base for the whole Ukraine war, and the person's like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Technically that's probably not the best way to do it,
Yeah.
in the same way that in therapy, right, it's probably not number one. Usually a person that goes therapy because they want to change, right? There's all these variables. There's the person, is the person desirous of something other, right? Have they, and if not, like, how do we bring awareness? Bringing awareness isn't necessarily just like dumping everything on somebody, right? Such that they kind of go, they just shut down. Because that's the thing, right? It's not just kids. They say trauma, like the kid just forget the stuff that they can't handle. And you see adults are the same way. It's
Yeah.
not actually that different. So you need a bit of art, right? You
Yeah.
need a bit of culture to kind of go at it, not head on, but actually with an artfulness. It's not deception. It's that you're dealing with people that have hearts and minds and self images, and it's not, they're not robots. We're not robots.
Yeah.
So I feel that's humbling, because then we're not taking this like crazy karate chop head on kind of thing. Like that doesn't really work except in movies, probably most of the time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, it's like you don't go to therapy unless you're trying to get better. So you have to, I guess it's expected that there's going to be a level of discomfort and shock, but maybe the same thing applies to like if you are active in like everyday life, if you are on social media, and if you are like having political debates, then you're fair game to be like, hey, they're all being blackmailed by satanic pedophiles.
Mm.
But if you just go meet someone who's like living in the mountains and just like chopping wood and getting well water and hunting deer, and they don't know a goddamn thing about anything. Like I remember watching this documentary about this couple up in the middle of Alaska. Like once a year, they're airdropped like antibiotics,
Right.
and that's the only contact they have. And finally, some like film crew went up and talked to them, and like they went in and like got their permission, and then like went and did everything. And like the year was like 2014, and they were just shocked learning about 9/11.
Right.
And I just remember thinking like that's kind of fucked up. Like they were out in their own like Arctic Eden, just I mean truly living off the land, like 1,000 miles from the nearest town.
Hunting orcas or whatever they're doing.
And it's like I don't think they're like, well, we brought him up to date on like the war on terror, and all I'm thinking is like, why? Why did you
Right.
do that? Like they're like probably one of like 10 pure minds left on the planet. And we are like, hey, I just want to let you know about McDonald's new stock dividend. Like, so it's like, and just like, unless you're going to therapy and like you're seeking some help and on a deep level that's going to be uncomfortable, I'd say like, unless you're like not in like the public or political or social media sphere at all, like you are fair game to be kind of like brought up to speed with like
Fair enough.
how you're
Yeah.
being blackmailed by the military industrial complex.
Yeah, no, I mean that's fair enough.
Very few people are in that exception of just chopping wood and like picking berries.
But
I mean,
to be fair, I mean, just for the Alaska couple, I mean, that's a special case. But like, I just think of well-adjusted people that I've met, and
yeah.
we could ask the question though. I mean, is being well-adjusted in an unhealthy society really that much of a virtue?
Not at all.
Like
If you're
like
considered a
being
good
purely
person in a
being
society
naive.
that's sorry, go on.
Being naive is nice, like if they're a child, right? But what is I think it's one of the proverbs. It's be as innocent as a lamb, clever as a snake.
Yeah.
So it's not one or the other. Technically, to be naive about things that technically like adults need to be able to deal with, because you can't really solve a problem if you can't even talk about it.
Yeah.
So then but that's a whole thing, right? It's we're coming back around, right? But
Snake
yeah,
eating itself.
is it healthy to be, is it a sign of virtue to be well adjusted in a society that's dying?
No,
I don't.
not at all.
Yeah.
It's I
So
mean, if
God bless them. I mean, this Alaska couple have,
hey,
but in like if we're here in
yeah.
the middle of everything, I don't think there that we don't want to. Yeah, we're not looking for a false. We don't just want. We can't forget, right? As in the
Yeah.
dialogue, they just want to unknow. That's not an option.
No,
To
no, you can't
unknow, to
unknow.
forget.
No, I'm with you on that. No, you can't unknow. And it's yeah, but also to be well adjusted in this society is like not well adjusted to like To be
Right.
like,
Right.
yeah, I'm, 60 years ago to be like socially progressive is like, fuck yeah, you're for like free speech. You're fucking, you're protesting at the Pentagon. Vietnam is, this is bullshit. You're protesting against the war on drugs, against black people getting shot with fire hoses. Like, that's socially progressive. To be socially progressive today, you're like, fuck yeah, chop off that 5 year old's cock and balls. Like, dude, that ain't, you can call it what you want. You can paint it with any words you want and say this is progressive. It's mutilation. To be progressive and saying like, well, I don't call it the China virus. It's like, dude, it came out of a Chinese lab in a country where they have 2 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps. Like,
Right.
to be progressive now is not to be objectively progressive. It's to be progressive in name only. And so like, yeah, no, to be well adjusted in this society doesn't really mean anything. If anything, it's a negative.
But
If you
hence,
if you've never been shadow banned or banned from like a platform, like you're kind of a pussy.
right. Yeah. Congrats. You're banned on all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, but that yeah, and yeah, of course. So obviously I'm
YouTube. That goes
biased.
back a while, right?
Like yeah, like 2+ years. Yeah, no, it's yeah. Tim Pool's like, we have the balls to say it was a lab leak. I'm like, fuck you, pussy. I can say that 2 years ago, you cocksucker. But neither here nor there. It doesn't mean anything to be well adjusted in the modern world. To be like, well, listen, I understand that politics is it's a complex thing, and you gotta be fucking the right kid on the right island. I mean, that's the only way you're gonna get reelected. Like, that doesn't make you a given that our entire Senate was controlled by a man who is friends with billionaires and was gifted penthouses in multiple cities. Given that, I also understand like we've got to be for, trans rights and Title 42. And it's like, dude, what are you talking about? Like we're through the looking glass. Like, we've stepped
And
into the event horizon of just insanity and mind melting shit. Like,
all the more, I think that's why the only way to resolve all these binds, right? These are the psycho spiritual binds that have, are that we're enslaving ourselves by, remaining within these things. I mean, that's why, because there are like the well-adjusted people are the mean, like they're in the middle, right?
yeah,
There's people on who are hyper aware, right? Who are fully online, um, and there's the bad guys, and they're semi-online. They're kind of online and more online in certain ways. But then there's all the people in the middle, and a good deal of what, which way history goes depends on, it's just a struggle over a small percentage to shift that mean, right? And so, I mean, how do you can't just burst a well-adjusted person's bubble, but at the same time, like if they're gonna confront some of the crazy things that we're talking about and that we like to talk about, or learn more about, they have to have a sense of the good. The thing that would stop them from facing these darker realities is not their inability to understand bad things. It's forgetting that there's a deeper good, and that's why we have to confront the evil,
mm,
right? Which is just it's just a deviation from the good. That's its intrinsic nature. It's not really a thing in of itself, so much as it is the rejection of beauty, truth, and goodness. And I don't think there's any way around that. Like, that's why people need to be strengthened in their imaginations, in their souls, so that they can walk through the valley of darkness and fear no
you're no
evil.
evil. You know, we'll wrap it up with the philosopher king, the warrior poet, the man of an ideal physique, Timothy J. Dillon, what he says at the end of the Life in the Big City episode. All you can do is fill up a cup with ice and wine and smoke Marlboro Reds inside while staring at the fire and create a bubble around yourself. And if anybody tries to come and pop that bubble with news or, word about the economy, kill them
Right.
and stay in your warm bubble. And if anyone addresses you, you just say, hey, it's life in the big city and you ain't nowhere near a fucking city.
Life in the big city.
At the same time, he's kind of saying just eat the sundae. I don't agree with it. I don't think it's like morally good.
I think it's film noir. I think it's film noir. You know, he's taking it to the extreme
Yeah,
so that I think actually by telling people to do it,
they come out of it.
they don't do it. And that's
And
the
he
irony. I
also
think
doesn't live that life. He's
we're now
still,
full circle. If you tell somebody to do something, they're not going to do it. They're probably going to do the opposite.
yeah, you're not wrong there. I mean,
So eat the Sunday, enjoy life in the big city, and
yeah,
don't worry.
yeah, don't
Don't,
worry. Just don't worry.
everything's going to be okay.
Everything's good. Don't look into Epstein. It's all okay. You big dummy. Yeah. It is kind of he's turned into a more well-honed monster in that early on it was just full bore interviewing Nick Bryant. They're satanic pedophiles. They're eating kids. Versus now it's a light touch. He has on those two kids, those two Democratic influencers, and
Yeah,
like
bless their
he just
hearts.
he just brings up little things in there like, yeah, no, this makes sense, and just talking about like war profiteering and Burisma in Ukraine. He's gotten better at it. He's not as straight up like satanic pedophiles. It's much more of a light touch. And maybe he's just become a more fine honed weapon.
And that's the irony, right? That's
Yeah.
where we gotta get to.
Fuck. Did
Oh,
you
that I
listen
mean, that was a nice passage from the Gospel of Tim, the
from the
life in the big
Gospel of
city.
Tim? Yeah, yeah, blessed be his name. Did you listen to About My Father with Tim and Ray Kump?
Yeah, that was I've listened to it several times.
Me
That's it
too.
was
I think that's to me personally, I think that's maybe like top 10, top 5 Tim and Ray.
I mean it was like really dumb, but
That
that's
was
actually what
retarded.
made it so
It was
that's what made
retarded.
it so funny that I haven't seen the movie. I'm not gonna
I mean, I'm
I
not
had a
going to.
feeling though. But yeah, I mean
So he says at the end now, he goes, "This is the most classless take on this movie." That's what it is. It's like it's not intellectual. That episode's not provoking. It's not thought provoking. But man, it's a great Sunday.
and at the same time it's like, yeah, if it's a shitty thing, all you can do is then imagine like what if this, what if that instead. And theirs was the best what if you could imagine, right? It was like
Yeah.
the
What
craziest.
if it
You're like,
was he was fucking his dad? My father. And we lube each other up with olive oil and fuck each other in the ass.
I'm looking forward to Tim Dillon movies.
Oh God, me too.
Yeah,
Didn't was
because I think
didn't
it's
wasn't he didn't he get a role in one
yeah, no, but something that he actually makes. I
that he
mean,
makes?
but
Yeah.
see, that would be a major shift in the culture, like the whole movie industry thing, because it is so hard to access. But if you get like a new Joe Rogan mecha movie production thing with like actually talented people coming up with movies like Tim Dillon and other people who funny movies, serious movies, whatever. See, these kind of things can shift a culture pretty quickly. I mean, just the JFK movie, right? The first one by Oliver Stone, like that. And it wasn't even like you could have even gone harder, or you could go harder today and people would be ready for it. So I do think there's so much potential when we think about as much damage as the screens have done. You see one thing where the truth actually gets out, and like it can dwarf 1,000 about my father's or dreams from my father.
Yeah, or whatever the fuck it was called.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it. And we'll wrap it with this. As if something is so bad, there's really nothing to do but say, yeah, but what if? and then just get the most laughter out of that.
Yeah.
Is that
So
not a
we'll
more is that not a longer way to say life in the big city?
I say it every day now.
Life in the big
So
city.
I mean we'll see you all on the other side.
Absolutely.
I'll see you on the other side.
Thank you, sir. Guys, please go into the description. Please go follow him. Go follow his Substack. Go listen to the article, which you can listen to. You don't have to read it. He made it easier. You can eat your Sunday. You can just listen to it. That's what I did, like a real fucking pig at the trough. I listened to it while I drove around today and did errands. It's fucking brilliant. Um, yeah, dude. Till next time. As always, it's a pleasure, David.
It was a pleasure, Mr. Carrigan. See you on the other side.
Life in the